Hello and welcome to the second Flyingshapes curve tool tutorial. In the last tutorial I showed you the basics of the curve tool, and this time we will talk about the more advanced functions. For example, when you grab the control point at the end of a curve, which is called the anchor point, the whole curve is stretching, so the character of the curve remains intact. When you do the same thing, but simultaneously press and hold the trigger of your secondary controller as a kind of shift function, only the anchor point will move. Now let's say we want to add a control point to the curve right here. For this, once again press and hold the trigger of your secondary controller as a kind of shift function. Then, while still hovering the curve, press the trigger of your primary controller, and there it is. Say hello to a nice new control point on the curve. But how do you delete a control point? Just grab it with your primary controller, swipe your thumbstick to the left, and say goodbye to the little guy. Now let's say you want to snap the end of this curve to the mirror here. For this we will use the snap button, which is the one with the magnet icon on your secondary controller. First, grab the endpoint of the curve using the grip button of your primary controller, hold that, and then press and hold the snap button with the magnet icon on your secondary controller. Now move your primary controller close to the mirror until you see the curve snap in right there. Release all buttons and you have a nice continuous curve. If the control point you want to snap is already close to the mirror, you can also just hover it with your primary controller and press the Option button with the square icon on it. Next, let me show you how to cut a curve. Let's say you want it a little bit shorter and need to cut it right here. So hover the curve with your primary controller, then hold the snap button with the magnet icon on it on your secondary controller, and you can already see the scissors on the tooltip. Now press and hold the trigger on your primary controller and the curve is cut. You can see how you can hover the two halves separately. Now you can simply delete the unwanted part of the curve by grabbing it and swiping your thumbstick to the left. Sometimes you have two curves that would fit nicely together and you want them to become one. To join them, grab the anchor point of the first curve with your primary controller. Then hold the snap button, right, the one with the magnet icon, on your secondary controller and move your primary controller to the anchor point of the second curve until it snaps. The curves now look as if they are joined, but you can still hover the parts separately. To completely merge them, hover the joint control point with your primary controller. Then press the Option button with the little square icon on it, which brings up the context menu. Right there, you select the Merge option by pulling the trigger, and the two curves will be merged together as one.